She parked her golf cart in my barn without asking. So I turned it into a chicken coop. What happened next? Police were called, lawsuits were threatened, and feathers were everywhere. This isn't just a Karen story. It's a revenge masterpiece you won't believe. Karen stormed across the pasture like a hurricane in designer athleisure, her perfectly manicured nails clutching her phone as she shrieked in absolute horror. Her prized white golf cart, the one with a custom pink trim and HOA president license plate, sat covered in feathers, straw, and what could only be described as nature's own decoration. The vehicle was parked right where she'd left it, inside what was now a fully functional chicken coop. Clucking echoed around it as hens pecked at the tires, and a magnificent rooster jumped onto the roof, crowing triumphantly as if claiming his new throne. I stepped out of the barn holding a feed bucket and wearing the biggest grin of my life. "Told you not to park here," I said calmly, scattering feed for my new feathered friends. A few months earlier, I bought the old Henderson Ranch property, a beautiful 20-acre spread that bordered the upscale Willowbrook HOA community. My name's Will and I'm a mechanic by trade, with a passion for hobby farming. The property was perfect for me, with its classic red barn, rolling pastures, and plenty of space for my collection of vintage tractors. Though my land was entirely outside the HOA's jurisdiction, that didn't stop Karen Wellington, the self-appointed queen of Willowbrook, from making her opinions known. From day one, she disapproved of everything about my property. The tractors were eyesores, she claimed. The barn was unsightly. Even my small herd of goats offended her delicate sensibilities. She'd leave passive-aggressive notes on my fence posts and offer unwanted advice about how I could make my property more appealing to the neighborhood aesthetic. The first incident happened on a Tuesday morning in May. I'd headed out to the barn to work on my 1952 John Deere when I found something that definitely didn't belong there. Karen's pristine golf cart parked right in the middle of my workspace, blocking access to my tool bench. Thinking it must be some kind of mistake, maybe she'd had a medical emergency or gotten confused, I simply rolled it outside and left it by the property line. I even left a polite note on the windshield asking her to please not park in my barn. But the very next day it was back. This time with a handwritten note taped to the steering wheel that read, "Don't touch HOA business." I couldn't believe the audacity. She'd started using my private barn as her personal parking garage without so much as asking permission. I tried the neighborly approach first. I walked over to her house, a McMansion with perfectly trimmed hedges and a fountain featuring cherubs spitting water, and knocked on her door. She answered wearing a blazer with an HOA pin the size of a dinner plate. "Karen, we need to talk about your golf cart," I said politely. She waved her hand dismissively and said, "Oh, that old barn of yours was just sitting there unused. It serves the neighborhood better if I can access it for HOA patrol duties. You understand?" I explained that it was private property, that I used the barn daily, and that she needed to stop parking there immediately. She just smiled that fake smile of hers and said she'd take it under advisement. The next morning, the cart was back. And this time, she'd added a small HOA parking permit to the dashboard, as if that gave her some kind of authority over my property. After a week of this nonsense, I installed a heavy-duty padlock on the barn doors. Problem solved, I thought, but I underestimated Karen's determination. I came home from work to find the lock cut clean through with bolt cutters and her cart once again taking up residence in my barn. This time, her note was more aggressive. "Tampering with HOA property is a violation. The barn isn't used space that the community needs. Stop being selfish." That was it. I was done playing nice. If Karen wanted to play games with property rights, I'd show her exactly what I could do with my own land. I spent the next weekend executing a plan that would make sure Karen would never want to park in my barn again. I worked through Friday night and all day Saturday transforming the barn into a fully operational chicken coop. I installed roosting bars along the walls, built nesting boxes from reclaimed wood, and spread fresh straw across the floor. The piece de resistance was the automatic feeder and waterer system I rigged up right next to where Karen's cart sat. On Sunday morning, I introduced the new residents. 12 beautiful hens and one particularly vocal rooster I named Colonel Sanders. I made no effort to move Karen's cart. In fact, I built the roost bars so they extended right over it. Within hours, the inevitable happened. Chickens, as it turns out, aren't particular about where they do their business. By Sunday evening, Karen's pristine golf cart looked like it had been through a pillow fight in a fertilizer factory. Monday morning arrived with all the drama of a soap opera finale. I was enjoying my coffee on the porch when I heard the shrieking begin. Karen had arrived for her morning HOA patrol and discovered the new state of her precious vehicle. She screamed about destruction of property, threatened lawsuits, and even accused me of animal cruelty for keeping chickens near her cart. Within minutes, she was on the phone. 911. Yes, I need police here immediately. Someone has vandalized HOA property. I calmly continued sipping my coffee as 2 patrol cars pulled up 20 minutes later. The officers looked confused as Karen frantically gestured at the barn, her face red with rage. "Arrest him," she demanded, pointing at me. "He's destroyed my golf cart with these disgusting birds." The lead officer, a veteran named Officer Martinez, listened patiently to Karen's rant before turning to me. I explained the situation calmly. "Officer, this is my private barn on my private property. Ms. Wellington has been trespassing and parking here without permission for weeks. I've asked her repeatedly to stop. I even installed a lock which she cut off. I'm just using my barn for its intended agricultural purpose." Officer Martinez walked over to examine the scene, and I saw him trying to suppress a smile when he saw the cart covered in chicken droppings. "Ma'am," he said, turning back to Karen, "this is clearly private property. You have no right to park here, HOA president or not. In fact, you could be charged with trespassing and destruction of property for cutting that lock." Karen's face went from red to purple. "But my cart," she sputtered. "It's ruined." The officer shrugged and said, "Should have thought of that before parking it in someone else's chicken coop, ma'am." The second officer couldn't help but chuckle as a hen hopped onto the cart seat and settled in like she owned it. "Ma'am, you need to remove your vehicle immediately, and if you trespass on this property again, you will be arrested," Officer Martinez said firmly. Karen stood there, mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. She looked at her befouled cart, then at the officers, then at me. "This isn't over," she hissed, but her threat lacked its usual venom. She climbed into her cart, grimacing as she sat on the soiled seat, and drove away with as much dignity as she could muster, which wasn't much considering the rooster chose that moment to crow victoriously from his perch on her roof. The next few days were surprisingly quiet, but I knew Karen well enough to realize she was plotting something. Sure enough, on Thursday, I received a certified letter from a law firm. Karen was demanding $1,500 for professional detailing of her golf cart, plus another $5,000 in punitive damages for intentional infliction of emotional distress. The letter was full of legal jargon and threats, claiming I had maliciously destroyed HOA property. I couldn't help but laugh. She still didn't get it. The cart was never HOA property, and she had no legal right to park it on my land. I forwarded the letter to my own attorney, who assured me that Karen's case was baseless and that we had grounds for a countersuit for trespassing and harassment. I thought that would be the end of it, but Karen had one more card to play. She tried to get the HOA to take legal action against me, claiming I was bringing down property values with my agricultural activities. She even hired a lawyer and threatened to sue me personally for the cleaning costs of her cart. What she didn't count on was that several HOA board members had witnessed the police visit and heard the full story. They were mortified that their president had been trespassing on private property and bringing negative attention to their community. An emergency board meeting was called, and Karen was asked to explain her actions. She ranted about unused spaces and community needs, but the board wasn't buying it. The final blow came when the HOA's own lawyer informed them that Karen's actions had exposed the association to potential liability. If I decided to sue for trespassing and harassment, the HOA could be held responsible since she was acting in her capacity as president. The board voted unanimously to censure Karen and remove her from her position. But that wasn't all. The lawyer's investigation revealed that Karen had been using HOA funds to pay for her golf cart's maintenance and fuel, claiming it was for official patrols. This constituted embezzlement. Further investigation uncovered that she'd been charging the HOA for mileage during her unauthorized trips onto my property, billing them at 50 cents per mile for her trespassing adventures. She'd even submitted receipts for the bolt cutters she used to break my lock, listing them as HOA maintenance equipment. The board voted to pursue criminal charges and seek full restitution. During the emergency meeting, the HOA's accountant presented his findings with spreadsheets showing 3 years of fraudulent charges. Karen sat in the front row, her face growing paler with each revealed transaction. When he announced she'd stolen over $12,000 in total, several board members gasped audibly. The district attorney's office was notified, and Karen was ultimately charged with felony embezzlement. She was fined $8,000 by the HOA for misuse of funds and causing public embarrassment to the community. But that was just the beginning. The criminal court judge sentenced her to 2 years probation and ordered her to pay full restitution of $12,347. When the judge read the sentence, Karen let out a wail that echoed through the courtroom. 2 years probation? She shrieked. $12,000? For parking a golf cart. The judge's gavel came down hard as he ordered her to be quiet or face contempt charges. Karen thought being HOA president gave her power, but trespassing, stealing, and lying caught up fast. Now her golf cart's ruined, her title's gone, and she's facing felony charges. Sometimes, karma comes with feathers and a rooster named Colonel Sanders.